Heyo, I'm Judge James, and this quiet set is Living for Crits tonight. Hope everyone's having a good evening. We're going to NPR this a little bit, right? So as you might notice, it's just me, hence the muted, quiet heyo. Judge Evie is ill this weekend. She's not feeling so hot. So rather than having a whole video of stuff running out of her nose and sniffling and all that stuff, we figured I'll just come on and I'll talk for some time. This feels pretty peaceful, though, I gotta say. I'm gonna sit here and drink my green tea and in peace and serenity. Oh, we got Keith's on, Greg's on. What's up, guys? Greg says, sorry you missed last week, but congrats on the new house. Thank you. We're not there yet, so it's a shame because I've already got all these ideas brewing from last week. Hey, I said heyo. Shannon just said no heyo. I said heyo. It was my heyo, and it was more of a heyo. Anyway, tonight's show is going to feel a bit more like this old Living for Crits thing I did called the OS Rebellion, where I did this retrospective video series of just my take on how I got into the OSR style of games back then. And I thought tonight would be my current love letter to Shadow of the Demon Lord, which I've chatted about, in a couple other episodes already. A couple other streams already. I don't know why I call these episodes. Should I call these episodes? Are they streams? Are they chats, vlogs, whatever? But I'm going to go through, now that I've had quite a few sessions already with Shadow of the Demon Lord, some of my thoughts on how it is going. And it'll be a good time. Good time, and if you haven't started brewing your tea yet, go ahead and do that now. All right, well... Oh, Keith said tea time chats. I like it. This week in gaming, we've continued the Coffee with the Demon Lords campaign, our Saturday morning weekly campaign. We were supposed to have a pair of DCC games this week. Originally, we were going to play DCC Lankmar on Saturday, and we were going to play DCC with Judge Evie's friends tonight, but illness prevented us from doing so. However, there was a big gaming accomplishment this weekend, and I finally finished Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So electronic gaming still counts for gaming. Now you gotta figure out what's next. Either I'll go finish Octopath Traveler on the Switch, or since I've been watching it, maybe I'll go back and start playing the Witcher games. I have just figured out how to work the original Witcher enhanced edition on my my iMac. Maybe Tyranny. I do like Tyranny for the computer, but it's a lot of reading. Kind of like Pillars of Eternity. It's the same kind of game. Lots of reading. That was always a problem of mine with Planescape Torment, which I could never finish because of the reading. I think it was a running joke for a while on Glowburn that I don't like to read. That isn't quite true, but I don't like to read when I'm having a good time. That doesn't sound right. I read a lot of books. I just don't read a lot of fiction or video game reading. I don't know. Or something else, who knows. But, let's move into Judge James Presides. How about that? I like the sound of that. Keith says he's getting ready for a night of Ticket to Ride online with friends. Well, there's not much reading with Ticket to Ride online, so I'd play that. That sounds awesome. I love Ticket to Ride. It's a great board game. Anyway, Judge James Presides. We have a question tonight. I did go on Facebook and ask for questions just to me, since typically we'd send questions to dccjudgeevie@gmail.com, and tonight they're just coming to me. This is from Tim Baker, who said, I won't be able to watch live. The newish time slot conflicts with our weekly family dinner, but I had a question. What are your thoughts on the upcoming Punk Apocalyptic and Shadow of the Mad Wizard games that Rob Schwab is building on the Shadow of the Demon Lord core system? And that's his question. And my thoughts are, I think they'll be cool. I don't have a lot of thoughts just yet. There's some. So for Punk Apocalyptic, it seems to me that it is post-apocalypse. So if that's your kind of thing, then you're gonna like it. it looks more of the I don't know, the nearer future post-apocalypse. I know it's based on a miniatures game, I think from Spain, right? It's based on a more it's I don't want to say contemporary, but Fallout era style gaming compared to MCC, which takes place like tens of thousands of years in the future. So that sort of like hits my post-apocalyptic button a bit better. At least when I watch post-apocalyptic movies, I'm always been more of a Mad Max fan on with that regard. And I think Shadow of the Mad Wizard, if I'm correct, that's going to be the Shadow of the Demon Lord style game, well, system, but with a more traditional fantasy backdrop instead of a game where the art is brutal and visceral and there's a lot of just horror and stuff in the game. The game system, the game mechanics for Shadow of the Demon Lord are tight. They're awesome. They're really, really good. I'm really enjoying them. So I think it's an easy system to learn. So if you wanted to have other players at your table who don't want to be immersed in the grimdark, then I think if there's another version of this game that allows for that, that would be great. So I will be kickstarting Shadow of the Mad Wizard. I missed Punk Apocalyptic. Kind of dirty secret here I'll share is that even though I'm a co-host on Glowburn, I'm good for post-apocalyptic and short spurts, but it's not. I'd rather layer it on top of my fantasy or my other styles of games than have it be like the core central focus. I always seem to want to play a post-apocalyptic campaign until I'm doing it, and like 2 or 3 games in, I'm like, yeah, this is too dark for me, or too depressing, or whatever. I don't know. Shadow of the Demon Lord is also apocalyptic, not post. You're surviving the apocalypse, so how that's different. Who knows? All right. I have some questions here. Greg asked, "What systems can you compare Shadow of the Demon Lord to?" Well, there's definitely some comparisons, and we're going to get into some of the mechanics here in a second, but there's definitely some comparisons to any D20 system. You're trying to beat a target number with a D20, and the modifiers are, you're stacking modifiers against it. You know what I compare it to? I don't know, like a weird amalgamation of, I don't know, D&D, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Pick your poison. Alternity and Edge of the Empire. So I make a note here. I'm going to get into that in a second here about why I'm saying that. Boons and Banes. Just making some notes here for later. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second, how that works. But essentially, anytime you're rolling a die, you're adding or subtracting dice from it, which, that's alternity. And Edge of the Empire has like a mechanic where you're adding or adding dice to your rolls. So similar. And Keith saying, did you see the Gen Con tournament for this year, Return of the Starless Sea? Yes, I did. I have signed up to run some slots of that, so I will be there as a GM for a few sessions of that this summer. Judge Sean is on. Heyo, Judge Sean. If you've missed, Evie's not here tonight because she is ill and a snotty mess. I did invite her to come on as a viewer, but she didn't. And again, you just get me and T. So, without further ado, I'm going to move into my Shadow of the Demon Lord. I don't know, we'll call this a 1-part review, 1-part first impressions kind of show tonight. Who will you become when the world dies? That is from the back cover of Robert Schwab's Shadow of the Demon Lord. This is by Schwab Entertainment, so it's Rob Schwab's game. He developed the whole thing. He designed it. I'm sure a few other folks involved with the process. I know there were. He didn't do all the art for it and everything. I don't know, like in DCC, I can usually say, oh, well, I know that artist is, that's, it's Doug Kovacs, or this one's Peter Mullen. I don't know the artist as well in Shadow of the Demon Lord, but the art's awesome in this game, I will say that. But this is a game of creepy, gory, grim, dark, apocalyptic fantasy horror. That's what this is. Like this scene on the front, this is like just a Tuesday in the land of Rule. it's going to be a bad day for you if you're a player character in this game. So Shadow of the Demon Lord is, I believe it's inspired somewhat by not just, D&D, but also, because before he wrote this, Rob Schwab was working on D&D 5th edition. But he also has a lot of, throwbacks to Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing Game, some references to the Diablo series. When I read this, inspiration-wise, I'm thinking of like Rat Queens, the graphic novel, Tyranny for the PC, because like in Tyranny, the bad guys have won. If you haven't played Tyranny, if you like the Pillars of Eternity games, like the mechanics, but you think the story's kind of bland and vanilla, which I did, Tyranny's pretty cool because it's evil. It's awesome. And now that I'm watching The Witcher, and I've played a bit of the first Witcher game a few years ago, I'd say some of The Witcher feels in here. It's got some feelings like Ravenloft, a little bit of the Ravenloft campaign. Not the adventure, the modular where you're going after Strahd, but if you're playing it anywhere else in the core of Ravenloft. So this isn't the first show we've done about Shadow of the Demon Lord. On a previous show, we covered it briefly because I was getting ready. I just bought it, but I thought I'd go more in depth with this one. I did do what I always tend to do with a game that's been out for a while. I went through a purchase of as many books as I could for the game, which was pretty much my Christmas present to myself if I'm buying all the books. So in the whole line, I think I might be missing an adventure or two. I have the Shadow of the Demon Lord Revised Edition core book. This came off of Amazon, so you can get the Revised Edition off of Amazon. You know it's the Revised Edition if you open it up and the 4 is by Chris Pramas. I also picked up, I did a print on demand of Occult Philosophy. So this is a book with like 800 spells. It's like, holy crap. It's pretty fantastic though. This is a must purchase. Hunger in the Void, I'll be talking about in a little bit. This is one of my favorite splat book for this game. There are the 2 Demon Lord companions, which offer some new ancestries, which are just races or it's ancestry is a race, species, etc. There's some items, equipment, stuff like that. But these are good. These are good buys. Uncertain Faith covers religion and the what's it called, the gods of the world, the pantheon. Terrible Beauty covers elves. Tombs of Desolation covers the warm north, the continent, much like Ansalon from on Krynn from Dragonlance. The land of rule is on the southern hemisphere. A Glorious Death covers the frozen waste to the south. The Queen of Gold, Tales of the Pirate Isles covers the isles to the east. Exquisite Agony covers hell, and it's friggin' awesome. Beyond the World's Edge covers what it just said. I have barely looked at that. Tales of the Demon Lord is a full campaign. And Tales of Desolation are 4 adventures released in 2016, it says, at Winter Fantasy. And then finally, Forbidden Rules gives you some modifications in the system. So, looks like Alex is on with us right now. Alex is actually one of the players. We talk about his character in a second, actually, because his character is freaking awesome. And he's a player in our Saturday morning campaign. So, I did go out and buy just about everything I can get because... I don't know. As the more I read of the core book, and I got the Hell book, Exquisite Agony, right after, the more I wanted more. And I've had such a great time reading through it. It's been just delightful and wicked and awesome, in every best possible way that a game system could be. I feel, alive when I read it, which is crazy because the game is very dark and all about death. But it just definitely ignites the right parts of my GM mind when I'm reading. I can think of a dozen different cool campaign ideas from this just reading through once, and I'm just glad that we're playing at least one now. But the cool thing with it, as I'll get into, is this game is designed to play in a series of short it's designed to be played in a 10 to 13 adventure arc. It takes you from 0 to 10th level, and then the campaign's over, and you could do another one in the Shadow of the Demon Lord world. You could do something a little different. You can go play another game at that point. You can go play Numenera or whatever everyone else is going to play. But that's my purchasing habits, I guess. So from there, I will say this. My one review I will say is if you're buying these books, and if you I with the exception of the revised core book, which is more of a traditional printing, the rest of these are all print on demand. Even if you're getting it from Amazon, it's print on demand quality. Therefore, I do implore you, go to what's it called, Drive Through RPG, and do it there. It's going to cost you a couple bucks more in shipping than it's going to cost you on Amazon, but 5 of the books that I received from Amazon were beat to hell. Like just chewed up, bent. A couple of them still are. I kept 2 of them that were bent. I shipped 3 of them back and just got them off of Drive Through RPG. The 2 that I got that were a little bit bent weren't too bad. The spine was a bit bent, and I got them so much cheaper than off of Drive Through that it was not a big deal. But you don't get the PDFs with them off of Amazon either. So just get them on Drive Through. It makes the most sense. I don't know what Amazon was doing with the books here. I know that most of my stuff from Amazon comes through fine, but I don't know if these were like sitting in, I don't know where they're sitting or what's going on with them, but get them on Drive Through. So our campaign, which is definitely something that I'm excited to play every week. I wanted to get back into weekly gaming, and it's so hard to do that. So I kind of put a call out on Facebook of who wants to game at 7 a.m. on Saturdays, figuring my family isn't waking up to like 9:30 on Saturdays, and there's no reason I can't game that early. And I'm up every morning at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock anyway, and we get a full virtual table of players online. We're playing on Zoom right now. And we're 3 games in plus a session 0, so 4 sessions total, and it's just a really, really great cast of characters. So Alex is playing Emperor Montag, the clockwork priest of the new god, who looks like a walking oven. My friend Tom is playing Krug, the orc hunter. It's a warrior variant, and who is the orcish voice of reason in the party, which is terrifying. What's cool about his orc character I like is that he fights with like a long knife instead of a like just running around with like a super armored battle axe guy. It's kind of cool. Mike is playing Gnoy, the goblin rogue. I almost call him a roguelin gob, a goblin rogue who is pure chaotic radical. Like he's distributes paraphernalia like down with the system, stuff like that. And then my friend Paul is playing Twine, the changeling magician, who has a spell that can turn himself into birds when he's hit by an opponent. That's awesome. We had just finished Dark Deeds in Last Hope by Robert Schwab last week. This week we did kind of an adventure, a bridging adventure between 2 printed adventures, 2 published modules. Next week we move into The Knife in Your Hand by Shauna Germain, which is a really sick and twisted and kind of gross adventure, but in every best way possible. So highly recommended. Some comments here. Keith asked about Zoom, and yeah, Zoom is just like Skype, but it seems more stable. You have to pay for it, but one of our players has an account, so it works fine. And then he said, my Star Crawl came chewed up. Goodman sent a replacement without hesitation. Yeah, if you're ordering through Goodman, I mean, they'll always cover you. And I mean, Amazon gave my money back. I mean, I'm not gonna complain here. I mean, I took a shot getting a little cheaper from Amazon, and it didn't look so great, so I got a new one. Most of my stuff from them comes through fine, but this one didn't. All right, so my impressions so far. I already discussed how much I love the character design in this game. And this is definitely the opposite of the other game I love so much, Dungeon Crawl Classics, because you have so many choices. Just I can say limitless. I'm sure there's a limit of how many choices there are, but just thousands upon thousands of different builds in this game. And none of the builds would be hard to grok or understand. You start at 0 level with just your ancestry. So if you're a human, and you're going to have like some occupations and stuff. And you get to 10th level, and every so many levels you add on a novice path at 1st level, an expert path, and a master path. But you get them between 1st and 10th level. So you're not waiting until 10th to get the master or expert and waiting until 20th to get the master. You get him every, like, I think it's like 4th for expert, maybe 8th for master. I'd have to go look. But like just out of the core book, like by master, by 10th level, you could be a human with the rogue, then thief, then bard progression. and you'd have attributes of each: a dwarf warrior berserker weapon master, an orc priest druid woodwoes, someone who turns into a tree type form, which is my shout out to Orc Dave from Rat Queens, who I love. Or if you don't want to do that typical, I don't know, power gamer stack of everything in one direction, you could be a goblin rogue, then spellbinder, then engineer, a clockwork magician, then paladin, then acrobat. Some of my favorite parts of Numenera or the Cypher system kind of show up here. So I'm trying to describe what it's close to. I think Greg asked. The character builds to me remind me of the Cypher system in Numenera. You can have a character who is a strong glaive who wields two weapons at once, or you can have a character who is like an intelligent glaive who bears a halo of fire in Numenera. So something that's totally min-maxed or all in one direction, a one-trick pony, or something that's totally over time blended and a weird, bizarre mix of classes and builds and stuff. So they call them paths, not classes. But I really like that about Shadow of the Demon Lord's character building system. Like how a character is so interesting. Like even a halfling, I think I mentioned it before. Even a halfling, one of the backgrounds is you got eaten, but you got swallowed whole by an ogre who then crapped you out later and you survived. That's disgusting. But look at all the story there. Greg's asking, given all the options, are there builds that don't work? Maybe. I haven't played enough to see that yet, though. So far, we're still only in the novice path. Everyone's just level 1 right now after 3 games. We'll hit level 2 probably next week. And nothing feels broken yet, but it's early. Every game kind of breaks down a little bit higher in level. I heard that combat can get a bit, long-winded in this game at higher levels. So, hey, Tom Frischman's on. What's up, Tom? I heard combat can bog down a bit at the higher levels. So we'll see if that's true or not. We'll get there. How the mechanics work. This is where mechanically this game reminds me of a combination of D&D 3rd edition, Pathfinder or 4th edition, whatever, mixed with Alternity, mixed with Edge of the Empire, which is, I guess, the Genesis system. So it's you roll on a d20, and you're adding a modifier based on your attribute. So if your strength is 11, you're going to roll a d20 plus 1, your attribute minus 10. And that's what you're going to roll. And you're going to try to beat a 10, which is your typical target number, or you're trying to defeat an opposing attribute or figure. For instance, a defense. Defense is going to be a character's agility plus whatever armor they're wearing, their modifier. So a defense for a bandit wearing brigandine armor and a shield might be a 14. So you're trying to roll a d20 plus your die that, plus your modifier, and you're going to be a 14, which can seem impossible, when you're rolling the odds are low, right? But beating a 10 isn't too hard. But again, it's just 50-50, right? But that's where the boons and banes mechanic comes into play. And what boons and banes are they're d6s, and you're gonna roll. You're gonna get boons for things that help you out. Either if you have some kind of advantage attacking your opponent, if you're above them, or if you have a special ability that grants you like a sneak attack. You're going to get these boon dice, and they're always d6s. Or if there's things working against you, you're going to roll bane dice, and those are dice that are you'd roll you're subtracted from your d20. So that would be something like if you're impaired in some way, if you're blinded. So essentially, your boons and banes cancel out. So if you get 2 boons and a bane, you're going to roll a single boon die, which is a d6. You're going to add it to your roll. If you have 3 banes and 1 boon, you're going to end up rolling 2 6-siders, and you're going to subtract the highest number of you're going to roll 2 of them. You're going to subtract the highest of the 2 from your d20. It works pretty quick. My description of it is nowhere near as good as how it plays out. It's pretty fast. You're going to have d20s, then d6s, and then d3s at your table. So for d3s, you can either use a half d6, or if you play Dungeon Crawl Classics and have DCC dice, like moi, you can, I have my own d3s because you have the D3s like this, which are my preferred D3. For initiative, which is also something I really like, there's this fast, slow mechanic. So how that works is there's no rolling of initiative. If you want to go early in the round, you declare a fast turn, and you either pick to an action, a single action. You can move, you can attack, and that's it. If you do a slow turn, you're doing a move and attack, or two things that are combined potentially. Some things can only be a slow action. So, and then somewhere in there, the monsters, the opponents go. So, and you're not rolling, just the first person to shout out they want to do a fast action, that's who goes. So, the people who are thinking too long, just push into the slow. I think that's one thing that Rob Schwab did when he wrote the game, was he tried to simplify some things. And the system works really well so far. Very, very well. Keith prefers the football-shaped D3s. I don't like the football-shaped D3s. They're weird. Plus, they remind me of football, which is like all sportsy. One of the things I love about this game is the monster entries. So I often will talk about how I love, or not love, but how I really enjoyed D&D 4th edition. Okay? And I get some crap for it pretty often because it was, it was my game. For a long time, I played a lot of D&D 4E. I did a first to 30th level campaign with it, 100 plus sessions, up to epic tier and through epic tier. The party beat everything that you could beat in D&D. They beat the Tarrasque. They beat that giant colossal red dragon miniature, the one that's like this tall. They fought one of those while flying on the back of a Spelljammer ship on their way to battle Orcus, who had crashed the donut city of Sigil into the world of Ravenloft itself. It was awesome. One of the things I like about 4E, though, that I want to mention about Shadow of the Demon Lord that reminds me of 4E, is the monster entries. So here's one of them. This is for the Fomor, a beast man who is craven, which means that they are frightened when they're surrounded. But they have pack fighting abilities. They're more powerful when they're fighting with their friends. And the monster entries in 4E was one of my favorite things about 4th edition. It was so much fun. Monsters had so much flavor, but packed into small tidbits. Whereas in 3rd edition, oh, my eye's itchy, sorry. In 3rd edition, monster entries were shoved full of feats and all kinds of just fluff. And it was hard for a DM, I felt like, to really dig in and understand that monster very well unless I would sit down, buckle down, and memorize all the rules, and I'm not good at that. I like my games faster. Savage Worlds is the same thing, but there's a little more meat in these entries than in Savage Worlds. So there's a similarity there to 4E. Let's see here. All right, so some comments here. Keith actually hates demons and stuff like that, except when he plays DCC, because it's so weird and over the top. Yeah, demons and DCC are pretty epic. Judge Sean would be happy to give me crap for 4E. However, I saved it with Spelljammer and Ravenloft. All right, well, if you don't like 4E, that's fine. I don't play it anymore. I don't even have the books anymore. I sold them all. I sold them all to finance my Savage Worlds purchasing back in 2012 and 2013. But I did have a good time with it. And Shannon says, that's such a boring sounding campaign description, Jim. So mundane. Yeah, that was it was actually a really good campaign. It started off with the characters in Ravenloft playing as like a shifter, a tiefling, a Goliath, and a goblin. So they were all monsters in Ravenloft being chased down by monster hunters. So it was pretty cool. I don't know. And just turned it, one of the tieflings' dad was Orcus. There were daddy problems. And it was a good time. All right. Oh, in my humble opinion, this is from Rob, 4E is the World of Warcraft of the role-playing games. And that's fine. I actually played it with that in mind. Actually, I'm a firm believer if they had called D&D 4E, I don't want to call this the 4E show. I think I have a blog post about what I loved about 4E, actually. if they had just called 4E D&D Tactics, no one would have given it any crap. If they had called it D&D Tactics and used the Essential books they came out with a few years later, it would have been like a best-selling game. But they didn't. They called it D&D, and everyone wigged. But again, it wasn't like you couldn't have just, kept your third edition games and all 5 trillion splat books for 3 and kept playing. You were allowed to, So, but there were those of us who really, really liked 4E and enjoyed it and don't plan on playing it again. So, anyway, on from 4E. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole at this point because we're talking about Shadow of the Demon Lord, which is the game we're discussing right now. So, I think I mentioned earlier, in Shadow of the Demon Lord, if you're playing this, you're playing for a shorter campaign. What Shadow of the Demon Lord does is it's designed around like the sweet spot of gaming that that there's lower levels and mid levels are the most fun. So why not build a game where you're playing around those levels? Now DCC has 10 levels also, but I think in 30 games, our DCC campaign that played through the Purple Planet campaign and got through all that, we hit 5th or 6th level. So after 30 games in Shadow of the Demon Lord, you're done. You're finished at that point. It's over. You probably will get 20 games or 20 adventures, 25 adventures or sessions out of it. At the end of every adventure, whether it's which might take a few sessions each, you're supposed to level up the characters. And I like that because it's designed for, I think, grown-up gaming in 2020, where you don't have a lot of time for a long multi-year campaign, or you want to do something shorter, experience a whole story from start to finish, and, it's good for that. Oh, man, the 4E commentary continues. See, I should never mention 4th edition. Judge Son says 4E opens up to Savage Worlds, which has happened to me too in 2012. And then, let's see here. Key said he met me online, and it's all been downhill from there. Fair. All right. Well, we're just going to get back to the show. Sean hid all his 3rd edition books during the purge. I got rid of most of my 3E books. They're all gone. I think the only 3E things I have are my Ravenloft 3E stuff. And I'm on the fence about selling that stuff. I keep going back and forth from whether or not... I have a stack of Ravenloft books, like 3rd edition and 2nd edition stuff. It's like this high. It's huge. All the Van Richten's guides, all of the Gazetteers from when they were done by White Wolf. And I'm never going to play it again, so I really need to have it still. I'm not sure. My favorite mechanic of all about Shadow of the Demon Lord, and one I think it's the most applicable for this show, because a lot of you aren't going to go play Shadow of the Demon Lord, is something called, is the Shadow, is the Shadow mechanic. And the reason I say this is, even if you don't play Shadow of the Demon Lord, if you play D&D, or you play Savage Worlds, or you play whatever you want to play, D&D 4th edition, good luck playing that with no character builder that works anymore. The Shadow is an awesome, awesome mechanic. And how the Shadow works is, the Shadow is essentially what the apocalypse is, how the Demon Lord is manifesting in the world, how he is creating ripples in reality. And what the Shadow is that, you're essentially taking a fantasy setting, and the Shadow is like a template you lay over the setting to start creating the apocalypse. So, for instance, one of the shadows could be, let's see here. There's a whole bunch of them. Invaders. They could be things from another world that are coming into the world itself and turning things around and turning them. Like, it could be aliens, but you don't know it's aliens. Kind of like I think that was from the Evernight setting from Savage Worlds has that. You could have a shadow be infestation, where all creatures in the world are susceptible to the Demon Lord's influence. Under the shadow of the infestation, the void corrupts vermin of all shapes, sizes, and kinds. clouds of locusts, seas of rats that carpet the ground. Just this shadow here, it's a devouring shadow. It's disgusting. And it would, early on in the campaign, people just notice animals acting weirdly. And as the campaign progresses, it's not just rats, it's demon rats, and they're killing people. And it's, you could do, there's one, the invaders one, could be demons coming through gates. Starts off kind of like that movie The Gate, which is a few of them coming through, and later on it's whole giant demon armies. The Dragon Awakens appear, stories of a giant dragon that's going to end the world. There's one called Bloom, which is like corrupts plant life and starts out with just small plants and gets worse. Rob says like fear levels in Deadlands. Very, very similar, but they just get worse and worse and worse and worse. And you could like double down on one of them, or you can start to layer some in. All I'll say is, now I have a player watching right now, so don't read this one, but the one that I'm working with is called the Looming Star. And in the second game of our campaign, at the end of the second game, this star appeared in the sky, this sick green star. And then there were screams in the village. And as the players went and investigated, everyone in the village was missing a part of their body. Some were missing fingers, some were missing ears, some were missing eyes. One was one that was missing a mouth. One was missing a whole face. Actually, they had to deal with a woman whose child was missing the entire face, and she had cut through the child's face trying to reach an airway so the child wouldn't choke to death. And, Alex's character was going to deal with that. It was gross. It was sick. It was disgusting. But it was interesting. It's a different kind of horror, right? But you don't need to have mechanics on this to make this work. So, like, I recommend if you're going to do anything after this vlog or whatever, is go find Hunger in the Void. If you don't want to buy the whole core book, this just covers shadows, and a lot of it's just inspiration. So you could go through this and use pieces of this without ever having to run this in Shadow of the Demon Lord. So it's pretty sweet. But I'm finding that no matter what happens in this game, I can run a whole nother campaign of Shadow of the Demon Lord and have it be, I can merge, Infestation and Bloom and have it be just the world itself is devouring itself. And the characters have to deal with that. And it gets worse and worse and worse. How the Looming Star will get worse, I can't tell you because Alex is friggin' on right now, and blame Alex. So I can't talk about it, Anyway, so that's my favorite mechanic, and this is definitely my game for 2020. I'm enjoying this game about as much as I enjoyed DCC when I first discovered that in 2014 and 15. So it's been a while since a game has hit me like this. I'll say it's been, before that it was definitely Numenera, and before that it was definitely Savage Worlds. And I enjoy everything I read in there. I enjoy the gaming we're actually having. I love that we're playing every week. That's definitely helping. I'm really having a good time exploring the horror aspect, though, which is something I wanted to do more of this year. Because in previous years, the last couple of years, some of my games have been downright just goofy and silly to the extreme. So this has been a fun reset to try something different in my gaming style. Not that I won't still have the craziness in the campaign with my kiddos, and their friends on the nights that we play with that. But this has really given me something different to try. It's kind of refreshing. It's grimly refreshing. So with that is my take. It is a long take on Shadow of the Demon Lord so far. I'll probably have more to talk about with it later. If there's any remaining questions, please toss them out here now, because we're going to start wrapping things up here. The only Road Crew shout out I have at the moment is Judge Sean is going to have his D6 games in Rochester, Minnesota on Monday nights. I'm going to leave that there, Sean, until you tell me otherwise. You can find us on at I Live for Crits on Twitter, or Living for Crits on Instagram, or you can search Living for Crits on YouTube for our catalog there. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. or like, subscribe, and comment. However you want to do that. It's crazy. Like, I went back and I looked at that OS Rebellion video. It had like almost 2,000 views, which is nuts. I think it's nuts. Some comments here. Let's see here. Rob is gearing up for a Legend of the Five Rings campaign. And Tom commented that his L5R campaign is just ready to wrap up. I've never played that game. I've played, I never played that. So now everyone's commenting about how Judge Evie's not here to do the ASMR, which is fine because I do the ASMR too. It's not like I don't do it. I do it every week also. I actually pull mine off too. Unlike Judge Evie, I cannot laugh doing mine. I giggle when she does hers occasionally, but I can get through it. So who is the best judge now, right? So with that, I'm going to wrap things up here. I want to thank everyone for watching and being a part of the show, and for all the cool commentary to the side here. There has been some awesome feedback, and maybe at some point, next time Judge Evie is sick, we can all get on here together and fight about why D&D 4th edition was so much more fun to play than D&D 3rd edition, which I totally do believe 100% and would take 4E over 3rd edition and 5th edition in a heartbeat compared to, I would definitely do that. Like, no question at all. 4E supreme over everything, back to 2nd edition. All right, and with that, at least I can do this without laughing. And because I have to say it, D&D 4E for life. Good night, everybody.